as a young blood, I had an old uncle of mine, like an old Jamaican fella, who lived in, you see it there, Chardin House it's called, on the Cowley estate. So I'd always come down to check him. And I remember I lived on Campbell New Road with my sister, so this is just across the road. And we'd come and see him. And from here, going to his block, he was really upset and he said, come, I'm going to show you where they shot the woman in her bed in front of her picnic. And so we're going to go and see, because it's all related to this story here. The louder I will sing, Lee Lawrence. And Lee is one of the sons or one of the children of Cherry Groce. And Cherry Groce got shot by the police in September 1985, led to the uprising, the riot that happened in Brixton. And I must say that, you know, I was part of that generation that was out on the street. So anyway, so let's take a walk over to the house and we see who's down there. Yeah, so this is all part of the, you know, what is called Cowley Estate. And you know, this is the northern end of Brixton. And on the one side is Vassal Road, and on the other side is this road here, Normandy Road. You know, old Victorian terrace housing. And if you look across the road here, you have the blue plaque outside. But yeah, it's changed a lot around here though. You know, this all used to be a park. It used to be a park. And you didn't really see much other people if they wasn't part of the community. Changed a lot. So at some point, Lee Lawrence will turn up and we can talk about writing the book and get a quick insight into what's going on. Who's getting worried about you, man?
Oh, no. I had to go all the way to the community.
Scene.
This house is the only house on the whole road that feels like it's been frozen in time, because it looked exactly the same. Net curtains, the windows haven't changed. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Like, the house is exactly how it was back then. Immediately as you go in on the right hand side, that's the door, that's the room. Yeah?
Wow.
And then we got moved from that room into this living room.
Wow.
Area. And then we stayed remaining time in that room there, so we could see everything that was happening through the window. So when my mum was being moved out of there, when she was being put into the ambulance, we was looking at that window there.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? But she was getting into the ambulance and trying to wave to us. So yeah, so we heard all the noise and everything that was going on out here. Do you understand? But for us, it was almost like we was trapped in this little bubble. Do you understand? Like, this thing happened and you're just left now. My mum's gone, my dad's gone. It's just us in the house as children. And you're just left in this like bubble of like, what the hell is happening? But as I always said, my concern was my mum. Is she gonna be alright? The anxiety was around that. So all this just probably amplified the sense of anxiety around what just happened, right? But in terms of understanding what was going on, no. Every now and then when that door opened, you might have heard people out here saying, you know, like there were people out here trying to get in to check on us. Because as far as they're concerned, we need to be reassured that them children are all right. But then the police are not letting them in the house. Also, the questions around what happened. Again, no one's answering anything. So it's a thing that's just building up and building up. And then that's where they were just like, you know what? let's just go down to the police station. We're not getting no answers here.
Yeah.
Because when I was reading the internal investigation report, and you get the other side of the story. So remember, from what we saw and witnessed was just the moment they kicked that door down. But they would have been standing out here, could have been half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour beforehand, plotting. There was man hiding over there with gun. There was men lining up behind here, behind each other. There was guys who had gone round the back and they were in the garden already. Do you understand? So they were plotting and you're fast asleep.
Wow.
And then you got the man that's come with the sledgehammer to lick off the door. So that first blam,
Yeah.
when the doors got kicked off, is when my mum's got up.
Of course.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So to know that these people are out here planning, yeah, to mount this raid on your home while you're sleeping, and when you read all of that information and start to think to yourself like, really? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? All that was in there was a family. But you got these people who are almost planning like it's a terrorist attack. Like, you know, like they're going into some house that's gonna have, you know, 10 gang members sitting there with guns and, you know, in some hostile situation. That's how you've gone in. So to kind of read that part of it and understand what was going on leading up to this, you know, it was hurtful.
This is 35 years and a month, basically. Do you still, or do you hold a grudge? Do you hold animosity towards the system that created this?
What's my feelings like? So, my feelings towards it has somewhat shifted, and I'll explain that.
Go ahead.
So, when this incident happened, there was one man that I focused on, because he's the man who shot my mum in front of me. He's the man that said someone better shut this fucking kid up. He's the one that was aggressive.
What's his name? Lovelock?
Douglas Lovelock.
Lovelock.
He was the one who showed no remorse in the immediate aftermath. So for many years, he was the focus for me.
Yes.
And he was the person who I thought I'd get revenge
Yes.
on. When we went to the inquest and I read the internal investigation report, I realized he was just a small piece of that puzzle, and that at every level someone was accountable for what happened. Because the amount of checkpoints there is to mount a raid like this, it's not just one man's decision.
It's a whole chain of command.
It's a whole chain of command. So therefore, the failures were at multiple levels. At any point, any one of them could and should have called off that raid, and no one decided to.
Why do you think in that case the raid went as it did? I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, I know that out on the street level, they were saying that basically they came to assassinate your brother. That's what the word was out on the street. They come to take Michael out, and Michael wasn't there. That's the word. But what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, reading the internal investigation report, and you got to remember, at the time when this was written, there was no way that this would land in our hands. So you can say that they were more open in this report, knowing that it was only going to be an internal report.
Is that the report that they sat on and you kept on pushing at the inquest
to get?
And they finally said, okay, we're going to redact, and that's the report?
Yeah, that's the report.
And how long did it take for that report to finally go into your field of vision? How long did it take before you to see it?
Years. It took, so put it this way, That report was concluded a year after my mum was shot, so in '86, right? And we didn't get our hands on that report until, let's just say, 28 years after my mum was shot. It would have been like about 2-3 years after she passed. So it was only in reading that report that I understood the attitude, right? Mm-hmm. So as well as the fact that they're coming for this guy that in their head, this nigger who had the audacity, you know, to show threatening behaviour towards the police. This is also about how they perceive this community, how they perceived us as black people.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And how they perceived us as black people, specifically from Brixton.
Absolutely.
In the book, I say that I'm indebted to the community for what they did, because it took courage to begin with to stand up to the same police who were suppressing so many of us. Let's keep it real, right? The black community was scared of the police, not the other way around. So if you saw police late at night, you either did one or two things. You either ran for fear of being beaten up by the police in those days.
Oh, they was terrible.
Right? Or you stop, put your hands up, and it's still with the risk that, you know, they're going to pin something on you, you're going to be arrested, you're going to be abused. So it was like it was a lose-lose situation for us in this community. So when that happened, I understand that my mum, this brother, was the catalyst for the uprising, but what people were responding to was how this whole community was being treated, you know, on a day-to-day basis. So going back to what we spoke about in terms of there's different levels. Now, my mum would never be remembered in the same way, and the event would never be remembered in the same way if Brixton didn't go up in smoke in the way that it did. If people hadn't taken to the streets, if people hadn't overturned cars. Because even now, when you talk about Brixton or you go on Google, you see those images of the cars being burnt and the buildings being burnt. And that's unfortunately what gives it the impact that people see that it was something serious. So there's different levels of people, and sometimes they're all the same. So you've got the initial people that come out and say, this is not right, and we need to do something about this, and we demand to know answers around why this happened. Yeah, we're not taking this no more. This is one of our sisters. This could have been my mum. This could have been, you know, any one of us. And now they're coming for our women and children. We cannot stand for this no more. So you had that initial feeling of we need to do something, and that's courage, right? That's what started people moving down to Brixton to get answers and so on and so forth, right? The next wave of that is destruction and disruption. So people are saying, listen, it's like we're trying to talk to them, they don't understand. So the only language they're going to understand is when we start mashing down the place, because that's what they value. They value property and land. And there are some people who understand that.
Yes.
Yeah? So that's a part of the rebellion now. It's saying, and these things we're mashing up, people will say you mashed up your own community.
Absolutely.
But in reality, we don't own none of that. So it's not our own community. We are the community who lives here, right? But we don't own any of those things that were mashed up. We just go and spend our money there.
Yeah.
Right? They take from us.
Yes.
So that was another level of it, right? Then you had the looting, the opportunity. And I would always say, all right, you've got some people who they're just about that. There's an opportunity, they're going to go out there, and it's an opportunity to make some money.
There was definitely a set,
commit some crime, because you're in that life.
There was a set of man that was on it, definitely.
But there was people who weren't about that. And what it tells you is the state of the community and the poverty within the community. that means that I'm walking past that shop every day looking at that TV and we ain't got one. Wishing you had a TV in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? And then there's this one opportunity, this window of opportunity where the window's broken. Nobody's there. And you think, why not?
Mm.
We can look at this in isolation, these things, right? And see it as, you know, this was a very unfortunate one-off situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to put it in isolation and put it aside. It was an accident.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mum wasn't meant to be shot, right? But when you put it in context, you understand that it was inevitable.
Yes. Yeah.
That something like this was going to happen.
It was going to happen.
Right.
It had to happen.
And then, and when you put it in context, you realize it's not a mistake.
Mm.
It's not an accident,
Mm.
right? What it is, you know, there's a perception of a people. There's a projection that's been put onto these people, and so therefore, everyone in that police force looks at us as black people who live in a black community like Brixton at that time,
Mm-hmm.
as the enemy.
Yes.
But it's not a threat, because every day a black man's going up to a police officer and showing threatening behaviour towards you.
Of course.
Because we're not like that naturally.
Mm.
That's not how we're built.
Mm.
Do you understand?
I know, I hear you.
But push us and prod us for long enough, we will respond. Because we're human.
A very famous black man by the name of Malcolm X said, if you want to hide anything from a black man, he said, you put it in a book. What made you write the book?
What made me write the book? I mean, I was tired of someone else giving their own narrative on our story. So I felt it was important that we told it from our perspective and from a human perspective. I was tired of my mum being referred to as this woman who was shot by the police in front of her children with no context around who she was as a person. So therefore, that was my motivation for the book also. We fought 29 years to get an apology from the Met, and a further 2 years, which is 31 years before the Met accepted accountability for what happened. We earned the right to tell our own story. So, one, a book form is, you know, it's a respected form. And although they say that saying about if you want to hide something from a black man, we have evolved a lot, and there are a lot of black people now who are reading. The other aspect is that I put it in an audio form as well.
Okay, excellent.
I myself is dyslexic, right? So most books I listen to on audio.
Mm.
So I'm saying I want to give every opportunity for someone to know this story, and I'm in the process of putting it on TV too. So I see it as this. I'm trying to tell the story in as many ways as possible.
Mm.
And shout as loud as I can.
Mm.
Because when this situation happened and that policeman told me to shut the fuck up.
And you're 11 years old.
At 11 years old.
They've just shot your mother.
Just shot my mum, and this man's looking at me in an aggressive way, like I'm irritating him after he's just shot my mum in front of me because I'm screaming and shouting. So the book and the title of the book is my response to him. Yeah? The more you try to silence my voice, the more you refuse to hear my voice, the louder I will sing. You know, from a young age, when you read my story, I had a sense of responsibility, right? And it's that sense of responsibility that allowed me to fight as hard as I did to get the acknowledgement from my mum and my family. So, first of all, knowing our history, and knowing our history in this place is very important, so we can those young people can appreciate the work that's been done beforehand to allow them to have some of the opportunities that they have today that they take for granted. Yeah? The other thing I will say as well, because and why it was so important to document the story, we have heard so many stories that never end with a conclusion that we can take strength from. Most of the stories end with no justice whatsoever. So it's important that we give a hope story to people.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So that they can take strength from that and say, okay, if you was able to get that far with such little resources and just determination and will and heart, what could we do with what we've got around us now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I would hope that they'll be able to take from this, is ultimately take strength from that struggle. And know that this is not an I, this is a we. Thank you, bro.
Brother, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Nah, for real, man. For real. For real.